Hi, folks. It's Talkin' Baseball time. Season 7, Episode 8 with Pete Lincoln and Jason Smith.
Hello, how are you out there in television land? Thank you for tuning in.
We're coming from the Passio School in Lunenburg with Joe McLaughlin and Debbie Lincoln, our able assistants. Right now outside, it's freezing cold.
It's about 45 and rainy.
It's not really baseball time, but actually the World Series is going on right now as we speak. Problem is with the monthly show, you can't really talk about things that are going on at the present time because when the show is shown,
it's old news.
It's old news.
And we don't like old news. We want to be current with the stuff we're bringing you. So I think we might tackle the playoffs next time. But if there's one good thing, if there is a silver lining about that the Red Sox didn't get to the World Series, it's this weather. Because they probably wouldn't have played until about next Monday with all the rain that's happened the last few days, because they would have been Game 1 and Game 2 right at Fenway the last couple of days.
And who would have guessed at the beginning of the year that they would have 6 playoff wins? That's 6 more than New York Yankees had.
Yes, it is, and it's 5 more than Tampa Bay had. So if you remember at the beginning of the year, the consensus was that if the Sox had about an 84-win season, third place, then we'd be pretty happy with that, because this was supposed to be sort of a bridge year. Well, they exceeded everyone's expectations this year.
It was a Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, Golden Gate Bridge. And honestly, I don't think anyone has anything to complain about for the 2021 Red Sox. It's a miracle they got as far as they did. So thank you for an unexpectedly exciting season.
Now, what we've been trying to do the last 2-3 shows is talk about our Fenway memories.
Right.
We've been to so many games, so many things have happened, so many interesting, odd things, that we thought we'd start each show with just a little quick memory of the past that we spent there.
Yes.
So Jason, why don't you give your first one?
So my Fenway memory for today has to do with the movie Fever Pitch. If any of you saw that, Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore. It's sort of a rom-com, but it revolves around this guy who is an enormous Red Sox fan. And he lives and dies by the Red Sox, and she has no interest in the sport, and they learn to compromise and get along. And it has a lot of local people, like Lenny Clark has a cameo in it, and it has a whole bunch of Dennis and Callahan, and it has a whole bunch of local flavor to it. Now, my then girlfriend, now wife, we actually were engaged at that point, went to a game in late 2003 against the Baltimore Orioles. Now, if you remember the Red Sox in 02, 03, and 04, they could not beat the Orioles to save their lives. The Orioles were terrible, and every year the Sox would go about 8-11 against the Orioles, and and the Yankees would go 16-1 against them, and that was the difference in the division. Well, one day we went to a game against the Orioles. They were losing, 5-2 in the 9th inning. They were losing with 2 outs. Todd Walker comes up, 1 year wonder with the Red Sox, if you remember. 2003 was his only year with them. With 2 outs, it's a 3-run homer to tie the game. And it went from everybody saying, oh, God, we're going to lose to the Orioles again, to absolute electricity in the stands. And in the 10th inning, Damon hit a homer to win the game. Now, after the game, this announcement comes on, and lo and behold, it's the Farrelly brothers making an announcement. Any of you who'd like to stay after the game, we're going to be shooting a scene for our new movie Fever Pitch, and we need some people to stay in the crowd for some background noise and background folks. So if you'd like to stay, feel free. Okay, great. So we stayed, and they sort of shuffled everyone into 2 sections. One big section was behind the dugout, and the other one was right in dead center field. And the rest of the park was empty, but you'd never know it because they only shot those parts of the park. And Jimmy Fallon comes out and waves, and Drew Barrymore comes out and waves, and Drew goes out to center field, and she does that jump over the wall in the movie, which was partly effects. And the players take their position. If you remember, she ran around Johnny Damon a couple times in the movie. So Damon was standing there, and as she's running towards dugout, the producers, everybody cheers. So we all stand up, yay, and cheer as she's coming in and romantically jumps in Jimmy Fallon's arms in the front row. And we got to see a movie that night unexpectedly. It was so cool. And who knows, maybe if you pause, we're in the background somewhere.
I was just going to say.
I have no idea if we are or not.
Could you ever stop and blow up the picture in the background?
Maybe with today's technology we could. Maybe we're lurking in a background shot. I have no idea.
That's great.
But Jimmy Fallon was unbelievably gracious, stayed and signed everything. We got the Farrelly brothers to sign our program for the day. It was just a great experience to be part of that. And as you know, they had to rewrite the ending of the movie because
right.
in '04 they won. So they added a little tiny coda at the end of the movie that they won in '04.
That's right.
And they run out in the field and celebrate, and Curtis Lascanic goes up and gives them a big hug.
Yep.
And
that's right. They had to change the movie. That was great.
So, but just being a part of that, like we said, you never know what you're going to get at the ballpark. You know, this was the only day that they decided to do this shoot, and we decided to be there. And in the course of about half an hour, we went from, oh God, we're losing again, to, all right, this is really cool. They won and we get to be in a movie. So I am not part of SAG, unfortunately. I don't think that fills my Screen Actors Guild requirement, but maybe I'll work up an IMDb entry one of these days for that. Who knows?
I had something somewhat similar. This is my memory. When they filmed Fear Strikes Out, the Jimmy Pearsall story back in the early 50s, they shot action shots of the park during a game, and I was there, and I could see the cameras just shooting distant shots that you couldn't recognize anybody in. So that was shot live,
right? So
but they didn't show any of the fans,
right? So you never know what you're going to get at the park.
My memory is quite different. You folks that have only been following Fenway Park for the last 20 years have no idea how bad it used to be there. Before it was bought by the current ownership, the men's rooms had troughs.
Yes, they did.
The ceilings all were peeling down on you. And the worst thing was that in the early 50s, the bleachers used to be chaos. It cost 50 cents to sit there. There were no seats. There were benches. And night after night, there'd be brawls. Gangs from Brockton would take on gangs from Chelsea. And so in 1956, they banned the sale of beer in the stands.
Oh, boy.
So in order to get a beer, you had to go downstairs. There were only 2 or 3 concession stands. Stand in line, get your beer, then stand under the stand and drink it. And there were no TVs down there to watch the game.
Of course not.
So if you wanted to have a beer, you're going to miss an inning.
Right.
If you're going to have 6 beers, you're going to miss 6 innings.
And some people miss the whole game now.
Very often. And it was really kind of a pain in the neck. When I go to a game now, and there's full-serve cocktail bars or waiters bringing you martinis, it seems such a difference. They still have rules. You can't buy alcohol after the 7th inning.
Right.
Good Friday, they don't sell beer. They're called the blue laws that exist in this state.
Right.
Well, I had a friend, Norm Gallagher, rest his soul, who was a great guy and loved to go to ball games with me. I went to ball games and occasionally had a beer. He had beers and occasionally went to the ball game. And so to miss, I didn't want to miss the game. So I didn't want to stand under the stands and drink the beer and wait a while. Right. So he devised a trick. They used to sell popcorn in megaphones that said Red Sox.
I remember.
Megaphones.
Yeah. You punch the bottom out and yell.
Yell through after you eat the popcorn. You punch the bottom and yell through it. He found out that you could insert one of these megaphones into the beer cup. The other way around. The beer cup into the megaphone. That's the beer cup into the megaphone. And if you took a few kernels of popcorn and floated them on the beer, you could carry the popcorn up gently and bring it to your seat and drink the beer. So we did. And we're walking up the ramp, and there's a cop. There always was a cop at the top of the ramp.
Right.
And as he turned the corner, he slipped and slopped some beer on the cop. And the cop grabbed him. He said, "You got to go back down there to drink that, bud." And he turns, and he says, "That guy's got one too." He ratted me out, and I'm running up the stairs trying to balance this beer in my popcorn cup. Well, I didn't talk to him all the way home.
Well, for some people, little has changed. They drink beer and they watch an inning or two of the game, and that's it. But you're right. The people that go to the park now don't realize that. Well, first of all, it's the only park, I think, where they still don't sell beer in the stands. They don't have the beer vendors that come around. That's a blue law thing, too.
Right.
Everywhere else you go, hey, get the beer. Hey, they wander the stands for you.
When we were in Baltimore, I remember there was a famous guy
who
had a device where he could open 2 cans at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I remember in Montreal, with 2 outs in the ninth, a guy came by and he had a 16-ounce Labatt's or something.
Yeah.
He says, "I'll give it to you if you want it."
Yeah, 2 outs in the
2 outs in the ninth.
Oh, thanks.
But,
I remember the Baltimore guy. When we were there, they made a big announcement, and they showed him on the Videotron and everything, and everybody cheered. And he has a following there. Oh, yeah.
Not at Fenway, though.
No, not at Fenway.
Not then.
Especially not then.
But my buddy ratted me out. I just...
and even well into the 90s even, the beer was sort of, it wasn't the most hygienic thing you could buy at the park. They limit you to 2 beers, so of course every guy would have a beer in each hand, and especially if you were in the bleachers 30 rows up, every step you'd slog the beer and it would fall off of the cup and it'd drip all over the place.
And you could only get one kind on draft.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like,
I think for years, wasn't it Stroh's Light they had at the park? It was like water. But now you could get craft and martinis and whatever you want.
Rum swizzles.
Yes, rum swizzles.
Now, we thought we'd add one little thing. Jason and I both got a chance to go to the playoffs this year, which was very nice.
We did. It was
and
awesome.
So I thought maybe a playoff memory we could add to this memory.
Sure. So for those of you who have never been to a playoff game, go. It's a completely different atmosphere. You have the whole, even before the game, they have the stand out on Yawkey Way where Poppy's doing his pregame show and everything. And they always have the band going, and it's really crowded. And you see celebrities sometimes, and we happened to run into one. We got there early to avoid a lot of the crowd and decided to eat at Fenway Johnny's because it was the only place that didn't have a 50-minute wait to get in and eat dinner. And we are eating outside, and I'm opposite my wife, and over her shoulder, I see, crossing the street and going up to the sidewalk, I see Psycho himself, Steve Lyons. Now, Steve Lyons used to do analyst work for Nesson. He was known as sort of a goofball kind of player back in the day. He's probably best known for taking his pants down during a game, if any of you have ever seen that.
Shake the dirt out of his pants.
Go to YouTube and hit Steve Lyons pants down, and you'll see what I mean. And he was... I couldn't believe it. No one else said anything to him. He was just kind of standing there talking to, I assume it was his wife and a buddy, and I said, "Hey, how you doing, Psycho?" He said, you're part of the favorite picture that I have at the house. He said, "Oh, is it?" I said, "I was there the night Roger struck out 20. And immediately he was my buddy. He said, "Oh, the one where I'm going like this and cheering." I think I was the only one cheering in the whole park.
That's right. You were.
And so he was famous among the bleacherites in the 80s because he was the center fielder, and he used to yell at the people, and he used to wiggle his bum for the ladies upon request. And he shot the breeze with us for easily 15 minutes.
That's
just
great.
Just a super cool guy. He had his World Series ring on, of course, and he was kind of astounded that we knew that much about baseball. And we're talking to him because I talked about all the days out in the bleachers, and Archie the guy who smoked his cigars, and people used to pass things that were not quite legal to smoke back out in the day, and he brought up the guy from MIT who used to yell, "Wade!"
Wade, right.
He brought that up, so he knew all the bleacherites then too. So, and I told him we used to sit out in section 34 in the little camera, and he said, "Oh, I'll have to look for you guys next time they show Rogers' game because you can see us running behind the net to catch the homer."
The guy with the red shirt.
Yeah, right. So it was really incredible to run into a celebrity, and he was totally cool about it. He was a really, really great guy in person. Some celebrities blow you off, as we've talked about before, and he genuinely seemed like he was interested to talk to a real fan.
That's great.
So we got our picture taken with him. It was quite the experience. And so when we went into the game, this was even cooler than Steve Lyons. This was great. We're watching the game, and about 20 minutes before it starts, when they're doing all the pregame hype and everything like that, a woman and her son I was here, my wife was here, and on her side, a woman and her son came in. The woman's probably about my age, mid-40s. The son was probably in his 20s. And she got to talking to us. She had never been to Fenway before. They had flown in from Spokane, Washington to go to the game. Now, talk about Red Sox Nation, right? She somehow finagled tickets out in Washington, and she said, well, we never know when you're going to make the playoffs, and this has been a bucket list thing for the two of us.
Wow.
So they flew out from Spokane, Washington to go to the game, just go to a playoff game. And it goes to show, we've been to hundreds of games. It's always somebody's first game.
That's right.
It's always somebody's first.
Right.
And to have an experience like that, to have your first game as a playoff game, and we were at game 3 of the playoffs, so it was the game they won at Fenway with the Grand Slam and everything. So it was a fun game to watch, but it was really just people come from across the country to go to Fenway and watch the Sox.
Absolutely.
I thought it was heartwarming to see that. It wasn't just someone who was there just for the heck of it because someone could afford the tickets. It was a genuine fan.
Great.
So that was our playoff experience. I mean, we saw, unlike you, we got to see a great game that they won in a blowout.
We went to 2 games. In the first game, we went to. I have a niece, Jessica, who lives out near Saratoga Springs in New York, and she's a marathoner, a good marathoner. And she's run Boston 3 or 4 times, and this year, as you know, it was postponed until October. And she called us up and she said, there's a playoff game Sunday before the run. Do you think you could possibly get tickets? Because my daughter, Scarlett, who's 10 or 11, has just become a big Red Sox fan, has been watching all the games on TV. So I was able to get 5 tickets for her and her husband and daughter and my wife and I up in the pavilion. And it's a great place to watch a game. And the game was tie. It went into 13 innings, actually, and she was nervous because she had to get home to be able to run the marathon and get some sleep. Right. But her daughter said, I'm not leaving. And in the top of the 13th, Kevin Kiermaier hit a foul ball right at us. The guy in front of me grabbed it, turned around, and handed it to Scarlett.
That's so cool.
It was Christmas to her. She kept looking at it and looking at it and looking at it, and finally she said, a Red Sox touched this ball. Red Sox touched this ball. And I said, well, whenever we catch a ball, you have to write the name of the player that threw it. She wrote Nick Pavetta on the ball. You can see the look on her face.
That's so cool.
It was just... It renewed my faith in the fact that maybe baseball is going to hang around longer.
That's
that
awesome.
A kid that's 10 years old can be so taken with the sport and what was going on there.
That's awesome.
And the tension in a tight game, in a playoff game. Yeah. Everybody stands up.
The whole game.
There's not people chatting about stocks or spending all their time under the stands. The whole place is just electric.
Yeah, it really is.
And to see a little girl like this caught up in it, she'll be a fan for life.
Oh, of course. And the funny thing is, the only electronics people use are taking pictures on their phone.
Yeah.
Nobody's texting. Nobody's checking Facebook. Everyone's doing this. They're just taking pictures of Fenway and of the game and everything like that. And where we sat, it was foul ball central. In fact, one guy caught 2 foul balls where we were, the next section over. And there was one that came really near us. And as you said, the beer people. Yeah. On the other side of us, we had the extreme opposite end of the Spokane woman. We had 4 people who showed up in the 3rd inning, went downstairs in the 4th to get 2 beers and nachos, came back in the 6th, and then left in the 7th again. Now, had they not been there, there was a foul ball that hit right next to the girl at the end. Like, you couldn't have tossed a softball better than it was coming right to her. She went in for the catch and went like this and backed away. It hit the step and bounced back down way under the pavilion. The whole place, boo, boo. I mean, it was and if they hadn't been there, I would have just run over and caught it. I mean, it was that easy. But it had to be one of the innings that they were there in my way, blocking me from getting the foul ball.
The saddest the possible words, it might have been.
It might have been. So it might have been that I got a ball too, but it had to be one of the innings that these clowns were sitting in their seats.
Okay, in the next show, we're going to talk more about the final playoffs.
Yeah, because the World Series is going, and we don't want to do anything preemptive. So tune in next month for that.
As you've been following us, we've been picking players that should be in the Hall of Fame. We've done the whole infield, left field, center field, and today we're going to do right fielders.
Right fielders.
But first, before we do that, the traditional trivia question.
Well, I hope I do better than Jonathan, who lost on Jeopardy last night after 11 consecutive days. So we'll see how I do.
The Red Sox have had each position become an MVP for the year.
Okay.
Right field, they've had 2.
Okay.
One, obviously, is Mookie Betts.
Yep.
Who was the other one?
The other right field
The
MVP.
right fielder MVP for the Red Sox.
Okay. I will ponder that.
That's your question.
I will have to think about that.
Okay. So
Wow.
who is going to be your first pick for right
Okay,
field?
so my first right fielder here, and just a preemptive, I didn't think it was fair to pick Ichiro. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's an obvious one. We want to dig a little deeper than the real obvious guys here. My first pick is Dave Parker, or Dave Parker, as we would say here in New England, nicknamed the Cobra. So if you remember Dave Parker, he was mostly well known for the Pirates. He was part of the '79 team that won the World Series, the We Are Family team with Willie Stargell and all those guys. And he, back in the day, was quite a feared hitter. He actually ended up with over 2,700 hits in his career, and that's way more than a lot of people that are in the Hall of Fame. He hit .290 for his career. He had 121 OPS plus, 339 homers. He played almost 2 decades, 19 years in the majors. He won the MVP in '78, and if you remember, there was a Sports Illustrated magazine in 1978 that had him and Jim Rice standing back to back saying, who's better? And the two of them were looking at each other like this, because '78 was the year, best year for both of them. They were just the most feared hitters in each league at that point.
Rice was the MVP.
Right, and he was too. So he had 4 other years that he finished in the top 5 MVPs. He had 3 Gold Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers, 7 All-Star games. He won back-to-back batting titles in '77 and '78. He led in slugging a couple of times, total bases. I think he has two things against him that people are hesitant to vote him in. I think the first thing is that he doesn't hold up well with the sabermetrics crowd because he didn't walk a lot. He was a free swinger. I think he only topped out at about 40, maybe 50 walks a season. And as we all know, the sabermetrics crowd is all about not making an out. So that he has that strike against him. But even bigger than that, he was part of a big cocaine scandal in 1985. I don't know if anybody remembers this. There was a big to-do with a Pittsburgh cocaine dealer who was dealing to players, and there were 6 guys that were in the middle of it, and Dave Parker was one of them, and he was suspended for all of '86 for his involvement with the cocaine scandal. And if you watch Ken Burns baseball, they make a big deal about that too, about how cocaine was just rampant in the '80s in baseball. And he cleaned himself up, and he had a pretty good back half of his career. He was never quite the same after he left Pittsburgh, but he had some good years with the Reds. He had one final really good year with the Brewers. He won 2 World Series, one with the Pirates, one with the A's. And again, if you're into the whole black ink thing that they call it, if someone led the league, if you look at the back of the baseball card, as we talked about, on the stats, it has a little, it's bolded when a player leads the league in something.
Right.
Dave Parker has a ton of black ink with total bases and home runs and on base and total bases. But for about a decade, he was one of the absolute most feared hitters in the National League. So I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he cuts the mustard with his numbers. Okay. I really do.
Good choice.
Yeah.
I wrestled between 2, Bobby Abreu and Dwight Evans.
I wrestled with Bobby Abreu also.
I had to go with nepotism. Dwight Evans,
yes.
I think, should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
He played 19 years with the Red Sox and then, for some unknown reason, decided to end his career in Baltimore. He is 2,500 hits, 385 home runs, led the league in walks 3 times, speaking of the difference.
Right.
1,391 walks. Batting average is .272, but interesting about Evans, he got better as he got older.
I think that's unusual. Right.
His last 3 seasons, he had .305, .293, and .285.
Right.
He got better. And I can recall him as being the clutch guy on the team.
Oh, for sure.
They started him out hitting 9th.
Right.
They had him hitting cleanup for quite a while.
Right.
And then they put him in the middle of the order. But the thing that puts him in the Hall of Fame for me is his fielding.
100%.
Unbelievable.
100%.
He was in 3 All-Star games, 2 Silver Sluggers, but 8 Gold Gloves. Nobody ran on Dwight
No.
Evans.
Oh, yeah,
He was like Renfro.
Yes.
Nobody
ran
ran
on
on
him.
him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he was a tremendous ambassador for the game. Just a good guy. But there's one moment that he had, one iconic moment for me, not especially for baseball. In 1986, the Red Sox were playing the Tigers in Detroit.
Right.
And it was the first game of the season. It was timed, so no other game had started yet.
Right.
The first pitch thrown by Jack Morris, he hit into the stands for a home run. So the first pitch of the 86 season was an Evans homer.
Was a Dewey homer. Yes.
And he also had Dewey as a nickname, and you could hear the chant, Dewey,
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 yes,
Dewey.
Dewey.
And so not many players have a chant. Poppy, Poppy.
Right.
Louie, Louie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. I think one of the things that I might be holding voters back is that he was actually better in his 30s than his 20s.
That's right.
And that's really unusual for a position player, but he was. And you're right, he was Mr. Clutch. Oh, especially later in his career, always got the big hit, like in the Clemens game that we talked about all the time.
That's right.
Oh, I forgot one thing about Dave Parker. Speaking of trivia, he won the first home run derby in '85.
Oh, did he?
Yes. So if anybody ever asked that, he was the first winner.
Oh, that's cool.
But 100% agree on Dewey, and I agree on Abreu too. I really struggled on Abreu.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how good Abreu was.
He didn't have quite the number of games in right field. That was the difference.
But great choice with Dewey. I hope he does get in on some kind of veterans committee at some point. I think he will, because he was a combination of offense and defense.
Yeah. He often shows up in the what do they call them? The fan favorite box.
Oh yeah, yes.
And always gets huge ovation.
Yeah,
Just a real ambassador for the game.
And later in his career, he did have the best mustache in the majors. His fantastic mustache in the '80s,
which was. Jim Rice's was pretty good.
Jim Rice's was pretty good, too. Yes.
Okay.
100% agree on that.
So those are our two right fielders. And now for the trivia answer. The question was,
oh, boy.
The Red Sox had two most valuable player right fielders. One was obviously Mookie. Who was the other?
I think you might have got me on this one. The only one I can think of, and this is going way back, I know he won a batting title, but I don't know if he won an MVP. Did Vern Stevens ever win an MVP? Is
Vern
that
Stevens
correct?
was a shortstop.
He was a shortstop, wasn't he? Why did I say Vern Stevens?
He won it in 1958. Had any help? He was a football star. He came from the Senators and the Yankees. He quit because he hated to fly. His wife was an Olympic diver.
Oh,
Jackie Jensen.
Jackie Jensen. He won the MVP? Wow, you stumped me on one.
Ken Jennings'
I got one
streak
wrong.
is
I had no idea Jackie Jensen won an MVP.
Jackie Jensen was the MVP.
Wow.
He led the league in RBIs. I think the Sox were fourth.
No, am I right? Did Stevens win an MVP?
No.
No, I didn't. I know he won two batting titles. Why? He's a shortstop. I don't know why I said
I think
that.
you're thinking of Runnels.
Oh, I'm thinking of Runnels.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm thinking of Runnels. No, you got me on that one. Jackie Jensen was
Jensen.
MVP. Wow.
They've had five. Rice and Yastrzemski won in left field.
Right.
And Fred Lynn won in center
and then Mookie,
and
right.
And
that's it. I knew the other four. Thanks.
I figured you knew the other four.
I knew the other four.
So if any folks out listening got that.
Wow, you better than you topped me today.
No, you're just old.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, it was a little before my time. Wow.
I came up with something before we go into the next part that I just came across in doing some research for some other stuff. You know, there are 127 players that did a home run on their first at bats.
Yeah,
in the major leagues.
I know a couple.
127.
Yep, I know.
30 on the first pitch. 22 hit no other homers. And
I know
4
one.
were grand slams.
I know one one of them. Yes.
Now, here's a question for you off the cuff.
Okay.
Only 2 of those 127 made the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I know one for sure.
One was Earl Averill.
Yep.
Who was the other?
I know the other one. It's Hoyt Wilhelm.
Good for you.
Because he never hit another one. It was the only only home run of his career.
He's a pitcher.
I didn't know Averill. I knew Hoyt Wilhelm.
I went through the whole list. Judge did it, so he may become one.
Well,
but most of them were like 22 have never hit another home run.
Daniel Nava hit a grand slam on the first pitch for the Red Sox, if you remember.
That had never been done. There were 4 grand slams. He hit it on the first pitch.
He hit on the first pitch.
It's like every other at bat is going to be a bummer.
Right. Where do you go from there? First pitch grand slam. And I think
Olympus to the...
Didn't somebody weird? Didn't like Kuzmanov do it a couple years later and equaled Nava?
Yes.
I thought somebody
Yep.
else did it right
Yep.
after him, but he was the first to do it on the.
Well,
first
I went
pitch.
down through the list, and very few of them I've ever heard of.
No, it's like the Bobo Holloman no hitter kind of thing.
Yep.
But yes, I remember. And Hoyt Wilhelm played for about a quarter of a century, and he never
sure
hit
did.
another home
He
run
sure
after
did.
his first at bat.
Well, the pitch is batted there.
Right, or Earl Averill, I wouldn't have gotten. That's a good one to know. Yeah.
So we thought for the rest of the show, we'd talk about some of the postseason highlights, interesting things that have happened, things that might be peculiar or unique or maybe under dispute
Or
a
just
little
some
bit.
talking points about how the postseason
my
works.
first talking points is the Braves made the World Series and maybe even will have won it.
Mm-hmm.
11 teams, get this, 11 teams won more than the Braves did.
Right.
11.
Right.
4 in the AL East.
Right.
And the Dodgers won 18 more games.
18 more,
and they're not in the World Series.
Yeah, in fact, they said during the game last night, the Braves were one of, I think, only 3 or 4 postseason teams ever. They were below 500 at the All-Star break, and they ended up making the playoffs.
Now, I mean, it's good for them.
Right.
But there's something, I think, wrong about that. Hockey would not allow that.
No, of course
Hockey
not.
has whatever division you played
Right.
in.
But
they
the-
take the ones with the most points
Right,
and mix them all
they
up.
seed them with by
They
the
seed
points,
them all
right.
the way through.
Right.
Because it's almost not fair if you play in a lousy division.
Well, the Dodgers won 106 games this year, and they ended up in the wild card. Like,
Right.
what's up with that? And then they have to go and be the road team against the Braves. Won 88 games, I think it was.
Yeah,
or 87?
88 games.
Yeah, right. And so the 88 win team gets home field advantage. There's
Yeah.
something kind of odd about that.
It's just not. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. What's the point of having a whole season if all you have to do is win your division, and the division is lousy?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And
100%.
what chance have the Orioles got to win their division?
None.
There's 4 excellent
Right,
teams.
yeah.
But with the Braves division, the Mets were 82 and 80, and the other 3 was sub 500 teams. And they played each of them 19 times.
Right. So they had the advantage of fattening up on a couple really bad teams, and the Sox had to go and play the Blue Jays and the Yankees and the Rays 19 times
That's right.
apiece,
That's
and
right.
still ended up with 92 wins. So I agree. There's a big disparity there, and I think that's something going forward they may need to think about, reseeding the teams or coming up with something.
Because all you have to do is be hot or have a hot pitcher
Right.
at the very end. And,
Right.
you know.
Well, or the Cardinals were below 500, I think, going into late August, and then they won, 17 in a row or
17 in a
some
row.
ridiculous
Yeah.
amount like that. So you're right. All it takes is a hot streak
it
at the
just
right
seems
time.
right. There's 11 teams sitting at home
Right.
that won more games than the Braves did.
Right. Yeah.
So what's the point of the season?
I 100% agree.
know?
Absolutely agree.
I mean, it's great if it can happen,
Yeah,
but
right.
you know,
Right.
if it's your team,
If it's your team, it's great.
something seems wrong about that.
No,
to me.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, one of the things the Sox came up with this year, and we got a picture of this, is the use of a laundry cart.
Oh, the home run cart. Yeah.
The home run cart in the dugout. This is a novel.
There we go. The home run cart.
There's Kiki in the home run cart. They last year or 2 years ago, the outfielders did their little dance.
Oh, yeah,
you know, the little thing to jive it up.
Yeah.
And someone came up with this idea of the cart.
I
going
think
down through the
I
cart.
think it was Plawecki that came up with it.
Came up
They
with this
said, yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you can see the television will let you see the guys
Right.
do this in the car.
Right.
Now, question for you:
Yeah.
is this celebrating or taunting?
Oh, I think it's celebrating.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's celebrating. I don't think it's taunting at all. It gets the team, it gets everybody excited. You know, we talk about all the time, this is an entertainment business.
Yeah.
And you know what? Entertainment is, if the casual fan is going to get more excited watching a game by watching a guy get pushed in a cart after a home run, oh, then so be
The
it.
fans are, but how's the other team going to take it?
Well, if they...
That's the question.
Maybe they throw at a guy. Who knows? Well, but is it really any different than the guys who was a Correa was doing the thing with his watch or
I was just
something
gonna
like
talk
that?
about that.
And who was the one in the Rays? Wander Franco, the rookie. He'd go like this after he hit a homer and around the bases and everything like that. So
Well, obviously, though, when Correa went like this,
Yeah.
The Sox felt it was taunting.
Right.
Because remember when Erod went off after the
he
sixth
had- right,
inning,
right.
he did his back,
Yeah.
and Cora got all over him for doing
yeah,
it.
he did. You're right. He did.
So, There's a thin line between
sure it is.
celebrating. I mean, in football, they choreograph.
Oh God, football! They have the dances and everything like that. Personally, I don't care. I think it's all part of the entertainment package. And what was really funny, if any of you saw the playoff pre-games, A-Rod had to push Poppy down in the cart through the dugout in one of the pre-games, and Poppy couldn't get out of the cart.
How did he get in the cart?
Yeah, 3 people had to help him out of the cart. But it was a riot. He got in, and A-Rod pushed him just like he hit over.
Speaking of Poppy, he was so great. They have he's one of the 4 talking heads.
Yeah, he's a riot.
Everybody else picked against the Red Sox, and he picked the Red Sox every single time.
Yeah.
And when he was right, he had that envelope.
The envelope, and he opened it up. Look at me, look at me.
Always picked the Red Sox.
Look at this man. Talk about a great entertainer. I mean, he's just so much fun to watch and so much to listen to. And I know that a lot of people here don't like A-Rod. I think the two of them play off each other really well.
Very well.
They're obviously buddies, and they feed off of each other and they hassle each other too. One was a Yankee, one was a Red Sox, and they rag each other a little bit. But I think Poppy's so entertaining.
He understands that's what the sport is about.
Of course he
Sports
does.
are about.
Of course
it's supposed to be entertaining.
Right.
It's not supposed to be life and death.
Of course.
You're not supposed to spend every cent you have betting on somebody or other. Or people screaming if they're losing the stands. They go out of their minds and screaming, Facebook this guy.
Oh, God.
You should know that.
I know all about that. Decline. And especially, he's a Red Sox employee, but after the Astros won, he was very gracious. He's hugging all the Astros players and saying, hey, you were awesome out there and everything. He gets it. He completely gets it. I don't know how anyone can say a bad word about Poppy after everything that he's done. But
and survive being shot.
It's right. That's right too. So something else that I think this ties into the whole taunting thing, and maybe this is a question that goes beyond the playoffs. But I was very curious why, as you know, Yordan Alvarez won the MVP in the series against the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I come from a little bit of different time, watching some power pitchers back in the day. I don't understand why, if a guy is 7 for 11 against you, why don't you throw one right here? I'm not saying hit the guy. Throw one 100 right under his chin and back him off the plate. Nobody does that anymore. I don't understand why all these pitchers who throw 100 don't just back a guy off a plate once in a while if he's starting to do really well. If you remember in 2004, when the Sox lost the first 3 games, Matsui absolutely killed them. In Game 5, Pedro threw one right under his chin, backed him off the plate. I don't think he got a hit the rest of the series. Right. It makes a difference. If a guy like that is just beating you that much, back him up a little bit. I don't quite understand why that doesn't happen in today's game.
I mean,
now.
In the old days, that was standard practice.
Oh, absolutely.
And now especially that they got helmets with the flap on, armor all over their arms.
Yep.
You're not gonna if you hit a guy, you're not gonna hurt him.
Right. And I'm not saying hit the guy, throw him. They call it the bow tie.
Yeah.
Comes right under here.
Yep.
I don't.
Pitch
and
inside.
then he got 2 more. He went 9 for 13 against.
They were saying how come nobody was buzzing Kiki.
Right. Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
And that's
right.
Why are they letting this guy clobber
why
the
do
ball?
you continue to pitch to him? I don't understand that. So that's something I thought that. It was a discussion point in the playoffs. It came up a few times. When a guy is that hot, why don't you just back him off the plate?
That's right.
And that's a lost art, I think. I don't know why pitchers don't do that anymore.
They're afraid to come inside. Well, partly afraid to come inside because the guy can slam the ball.
True.
If they miss.
Right, that's true.
Then he can slam the ball.
That's true. That was one of my
They try to keep it away most of the time. But that's true. That's gone.
Yep.
An event happened at the game, in that 13-inning game that we were at, that I'd never seen before, and the announcers hadn't seen before, and apparently the umpires had never seen before. There was a man on first, and I just mentioned his name before.
Kiermaier hit it.
Hit a ball, split the outfielders, and from our vantage point, 450 feet away, it looked like a home run. The ball was in the
It
bullpen.
did on TV, too. Right.
So when they showed the replay, what had happened is the ball hit the wall, bounced and hit the ground, bounced up and hit Renfroe, and from Renfroe's body went into the bullpen. Right. It's a ground rule double.
It's 2 bases is the rule.
It's the same thing as in the 86 World Series.
Oh, it's Dave Henderson.
Dave Henderson went back to try to catch a ball. It bounced off his glove and went into the stands.
Right.
It's a home run.
That's a home run.
So where it lands off a player's body, if it's unintentional.
Right.
That's what it is. Well, no one had ever seen that before.
Right. And you were at the game, so you didn't hear it. The announcers went all into depth, and they had to dig around. And what's his name? Had to go. He had to go find the rule. It was like Rule 10.88 or whatever the heck it was. This is the rule that the batters get 2 bases, and Kiermaier was beside himself. They showed him. He said, "What the heck is that?" But that was the rule.
To us, it looked like the runner had crossed home plate.
Right.
He was heading into third.
Right.
And I said they were all pointing into the bullpen.
Right.
I said, well, it can't be a home run because if it were, he wouldn't be sprinting to home.
Of course. Right.
But if it's in the bullpen, it has to be a double.
Right.
But how did it get there?
Right.
Because we couldn't see it bounce off the leg.
And honestly, on TV, I thought it was a homer too. The way the camera angle was, all you saw was a ball bounce in the bullpen. So they had to go back and look at 18 camera angles and. So yeah, that was a that was a new one. I had never seen that before.
And the umpires huddled for quite a while.
Yeah, but they got it right.
They got it right.
They absolutely got it right.
They went over and explained it to both teams. And it was good because it kept
the go-ahead run from scoring.
Right, That's right.
Well, speaking of umpires, this is something that was an enormous discussion point during during the playoff series with the Red Sox, especially. Laz Diaz was the home plate umpire the night the second night you were there, and Laz Diaz may have done the most unprofessional job of any home plate umpire in postseason history. They have the little graph which we're going to pull up here, and it shows his ball and strike calls. He missed 23, it says 21, there were 2 after he posted this. He missed 23 calls that night. Now the pitch for Evaldi is the one in the very upper right corner that's sort of behind the 2 red ones in the strike zone. It was clearly a strike. It's the green one that's up in the upper right corner there. But look where the red one is. Those red ones on the left are the ones that JD was called out on strike. 3 straight strikes, he got called way outside there.
So all those pitches were strikes.
All those pitches were not strikes. As you can see, it's the middle square is what the strike zone is.
Oh.
So anything outside of that middle square is considered is a borderline strike, and then there's that sort of dashed box. That's what I call no effing way is that a strike. And JD had several that fell into past the dashed box, which is just ridiculous. And JD never argues about anything. And he said something, and Cora flew out of the dugout and got in Diaz's face. And, I mean, for Martinez to say something, that says a lot.
Martinez just dropped his bat and turned around and looked at it and started talking.
Oh, yeah, he said, "Are you kidding me?" You could see him say on TV, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah.
He never screams and yells his profane.
Never.
Said, and it was a terrible call, and in a crucial situation.
Right.
And Cora came out, and then they had to hold Cora back.
Oh, it was brutal.
Cora came out, you think, to hold Martinez back.
No, they had to hold him back. Oh, yeah, Diaz was just absolutely brutal. And everybody talks about the pitch from Evaldi that changed everything. Yep. And it was clearly a strike. They showed it on, and as soon as that pitch happened, you could hear Smoltz on TV say, "Whoa, he missed that one." Yeah. And then the floodgates opened, Castro got the hit, and then all of a sudden the Astros got 7 runs in the 9th inning.
That's right. That
but we were talking about, and this was the big discussion point, Laz Diaz is well known as one of the worst umpires in the major leagues. Why is he umpiring a playoff game? How does that happen?
I'll tell you. Yeah. It used to be for years and years and years, especially when they had AL umps and NL umps. Right. There was a metric system that they had to rate the umpires.
Sure, absolutely.
The umpires that rated the top umpires got to umpire the postseason games.
Yep.
Now
it should be.
Now it is simply you have turns.
Yep,
Everybody has to get in.
Everybody rotates.
Everybody rotates. So it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. Yeah. I mean, there's 96 umps. One of them is worst.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Angel Hernandez. But Laz Diaz is right at the bottom of the worst.
And you'd think if they were rated that badly in games that matter that much, there's a lot of money involved.
Oh, yeah.
To have someone back there that is that incompetent, so incompetent that the announcers on national TV are calling him out.
And it's bad for the sport because in the playoffs you have a lot of casual fans that watch the game, and every other sport has gone electronic. Football, hockey, tennis, especially even tennis, basketball, everything is computerized down to the micro inch of measuring things, and so the casual fans turn into baseball and say, who is this guy behind the plate that's just making all these horrible calls?
And it seems to me that the things they check are whether you're safe at first or whether the ball was fair or foul. They can do that, but balls and strikes are critical to the game.
Of course,
so why can't they have robo-umps?
Absolutely, I'm on board. And
robo-umps.
I think a lot of people are more and more getting on board with robo-umps because we have the technology nowadays to show how many calls umpires miss. And I mean, just that was so obvious that he was just completely incompetent, and it went both ways. Trust me. I mean, the Astros had some bad calls go against them too. It went both ways, so it wasn't one-sided. He was just incompetent back there, and so I just that's a big question to me is why don't they go by merit or some other measurement rather than just rotating?
They should have robo-umps. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
100%.
All that means is the umpire wears a headset. A machine tells him whether it was a ball or a strike. He can override it if, say, the ball bounced through. But generally, he hears the thing, and then he makes the call. And you can't argue with the machine.
Exactly
that's right.
Exactly right.
I mean, I can remember sports way back, especially pro football, before they had instant replays and all that. Oh man, the arguments and the bad missed calls were terrible.
Oh God. I remember the infamous. Remember the game in '97, the playoff game that Eric Gregg umpired behind the plate.
That's right.
And Levon Hernandez, I think, struck out 17. He had a postseason record because the strike zone was about that big. Gregg was calling everybody out.
You know that though, if the umpire has a strike zone, so he calls low balls strikes, or high ball strikes, or inside. You know what he's calling.
Exactly.
So you shouldn't have to do that.
It's consistency.
Exactly. But if it's, as Zach calls, flip a coin.
And it was
flip a coin.
It was absolutely flip a coin that night with Laz Diaz, and that was just brutal. And I really hope MLB looks into that because that was kind of embarrassing for the sport.
It is embarrassing for the sport.
It really was. So
I don't know. There's something coming up end of November. The revenue sharing problem and the whole contract with the players and the owners is up as of December 1st, and I wouldn't be surprised if robo-umps is one of the talking points.
Oh, it would have to be. It would have to be. Absolutely.
There's also an umpires union, so I don't know how that would work with them,
and that's the problem. How's the umpires union going to deal with that? Because they'll get somebody like, who was the union rep who just went in the Hall of Fame?
Marvin Miller.
Yeah, they'll get some Marvin Miller type to try to intervene on their behalf. But I just, I think that's going to be a huge talking point with the upcoming negotiations. There's no way around that.
So I've got two or three, maybe you have two or three, of the games that the Sox played. Two or three very memorable moments. My first one is when Judge got thrown out at the plate. That was like the best thing that could happen.
It completely killed the Yankees' momentum. It really did.
It was a bad call to send him. But the Sox, the one thing they had this year was an amazing number of outfield assists.
They did.
It was extraordinary. Renfroe had 16 guys he threw out. Even Evans never did that.
Right, because they kept running on him.
They kept running on him, but it was a huge part of the game. But Sox, Yankees, of course, are favored.
Of course.
And when they threw him out, he shouldn't have been sent home.
Well, of course not, no.
But he's lying on the ground, sprawled out. He's their ace. He's out. We win.
That killed the momentum.
And I can just see that image in my mind over and over again. And it's a very positive one.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, I think they were only ahead like 2-1 at that point. I think it would have been the tying run. And Brazier came in and Stanton hit that bullet off him. And Judge got thrown out and Brazier settled down and got the next two guys. And the bullpen just shut him down the whole rest of the way. It was a great moment. Yeah, it really was because Stanton killed them that game.
And another thing that still amazes me is that they had 3 grand slams within 10 innings. They had 3 grand slams in 162
all
games.
Year.
All year long.
3 in 10 innings.
And they hit one in the first inning, one in the second inning, and the next game, one in the first inning.
And especially Schwarber's was on a 3-0 pitch. How often do you see a grand slam on a 3-0 pitch?
By a guy that always works the count.
Always works the count, right? He said he thought that was the only time he swung 3-0 all year.
It was just
it goes to show, again, you never know what you're going to see at the ballpark. And if you have a tiny sample size of games or innings, weird things happen.
That's right.
Weird things. And I remember when J.D. hit the grand slam, my 8-year-old son just started dancing around. He hit a grand slam! Yeah!
Well, it had never been done.
Right.
Again,
Yep.
it's amazing that they've played baseball for 120 years, and they keep coming up with new records.
New records all the time.
New things.
Yep.
In the World Series, we saw this one game so far.
Right.
The first batter hit a home run. Never happened.
Never
before.
happened. First batter in the World Series.
In a World Series, 120 years, the leadoff batter has never hit a home run.
Yep. Now, Pedroia did it at Fenway, but they were the home team, so he wasn't the first batter.
That's right.
Right. It was the very first batter. So,
incredible.
Yep. So another one that I think is pretty memorable is not in a good way. I think is the mystery of just what happened to the offense the last 3 games against the Astros. Bogarts hit a homer in the first inning of Game 4, and the Sox got 1 run in the next 26 innings or whatever the heck it was.
They did that in September.
They did, of course. Yeah,
they had a phenomenal August, and all of a sudden, how does the whole team?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not going to say Black Sox, but it seems pretty strange.
It is. It's very,
the whole team got shut down by the same guy they massacred before.
Oh, yeah, and got massacred last night.
That's
right. Framber Valdez, they destroyed him in Game 1, and he got destroyed against the Braves last night, and then he pitches 8 shutout innings against the Sox in the middle. How does that
happen?
I don't know. I think what happened is, and this happened earlier in the year, is that if they had a couple big offensive games, they started to swing at everything. Anytime they got in a cripple count, a 1-0, a 2-0, a 2-1, they would just swing no matter what. And the Astros picked up on that. So they would just throw some garbage pitch on a 2-0 pitch, and they'd roll it out or pop it up or swing and miss at it or something. And I think they really exploited that the last couple games. That's just my opinion. That's what I saw.
I guess.
So it's kind of a mystery. You get 12 runs and 9 runs and then 1 run in the next 26 innings.
And speaking of offense, Dahlbeck was the Rookie of the Month in August, and he did not play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, how does he feel about that? What do you do about that?
Right.
And they put Schwarber in at first to get his bat in, and he blew a couple of plays. He's not a first baseman.
No, he's not. He's not. Well, I think...
How are they going to trade him? Try to maybe move Schwarber into the outfield and move Devers over to first and let Dahlbeck play third?
Well, and the wild card in the whole thing is that supposedly Tristan Casas is going to be ready maybe 2 years tops. Tops 2 years, maybe even this coming year. So what do? They have this big log jam at first base right now. And it was, and don't get me wrong, I liked the Schwarber trade. He's a great hitter.
Yeah, he is.
It was kind of an ill-fitting trade position-wise, though.
That's right.
Because you had J.D. J.D. should never see the field. I'm sorry. I mean, I know they played him in left a lot. He should be the DH when he plays. So they were kind of forced to put Schwarber in either left or first, and that's not really where he goes.
That's right.
And especially J.D. hurt his ankle in the last week of the season.
Yes.
So what are you going to do about that? He has to DH.
How did he hurt his ankle?
Tripping on second base.
He was running out to the outfield. He tripped on second base.
He was in the outfield where he shouldn't have been in the first place.
He tripped on second base.
So again, I like Schwarber, but you're right. With Dahlbeck in place and with JD at DH, where were you supposed to put him? That was my whole thing. It was just sort of, he was a good piece, but a piece that didn't fit.
Well, it's like the old adage, anybody can play first.
Yeah, well...
And as a former first baseman,
not true.
No way.
Not true
There's
at all.
a lot of art to play first base.
Absolutely.
And you could see he blew a couple of plays. He didn't know what to do.
In fact, the one when he got the play right, he tipped his hat and cheered and everything.
The crowd cheered.
Right.
It's like when Dick Stewart picked up a hot dog wrapper.
Yeah, everybody went crazy. But you're right. I think maybe we'll save a little of that for next show, but I think first base is definitely a talking point in the off season.
I agree with you.
Out a way to go with that. Excuse me.
Well, running low on time, what we were going to do with our next show, which will probably be the last of this session, is pitchers. And instead of just doing pitches overall, Jason's going to take the best right-hander not in the Hall of Fame, and I'll take the best left-hander not in the Hall of Fame.
And I had a lefty, too. I have a lefty in mind.
And that's going to be tough.
I have to pick, or picking a righty is really going to be tough.
Well, there's going to be a lot of choices. That's the
really
thing.
It's a lot of ways we could go.
A lot of even ones going way back might be even tougher.
Sure. Yeah.
Another thing we're going to talk about is, because I think everybody always assumes that you're going to come back with the same roster that you have now.
No,
Boston especially falls in love with every one of their players.
Oh, yeah, right.
Everybody.
You can't trade JBJ. You can't trade Mookie. You can't get rid of this. You can't trade Benintendi.
Speaking of JBJ, he hit 150 this year and didn't play in the playoffs.
He wasn't on the playoff roster, was he?
On the roster.
Right, yeah.
150.
So
you can't lose him because he's Kike was a little bit better as a center fielder.
Yeah, and you think Verdugo was better than Benintendi as a left fielder? I think so.
I think so. So overall, they actually built a better outfield than they had before.
They did. I agree.
Look at the assists they had.
I agree.
But, the 18 outfield was all-time best.
Right. Well, I'm not sure on that.
You can't tell.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe our last show for this season would be to go through the team by their contracts.
Right. Who's going to still be around?
Who have they signed?
Right.
Who should they sign?
Right.
Who will they lose?
Right.
And therefore, what do they need?
And some players have opt-ins and opt-outs and all this other crazy stuff. So we'll untangle all that mess for you next month.
Check through the Woo Sox rosters and see who that Duran that came up for a while.
Oh, Duran.
Yeah. He's a possibility. Yeah. It's strange how year to year, so many players change.
Oh, it really is. And how many guys you talk about as being a big prospect, and then the next year, oops, that didn't work out.
The old days of guys being on a team for 15, 18 years
isn't there anymore.
Very rare.
Not going to happen anytime soon.
Very rare.
Nope. So as we wind down, thank you all for watching, not just in Lunenburg, but across the state and across New England, as it turns out, because we're expanding. As we speak, every single show we get picked up by more and more cable access channels, and we appreciate no matter where you're watching from. We hope that we're entertaining. We didn't have as many pictures and clips as we usually do this week. But that happens. And we hope that you stay tuned for our one final show of the season next month.
We love the sport. We love baseball, as you can tell. I've been to Fenway 71 consecutive years. And everyone is just as big a thrill as the one before.
It really is.
Watch the ball games. It's a sport that's on every night, and keeping up with it now is difficult because there's so many player changes.
Right.
No, I was watching the Braves last night, and I don't remember this guy.
Right.
He had won 119 RBIs. He did?
He did? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. He did. Or Marwin Gonzalez is back with the Astros. When did that happen? I didn't even know till he showed up on the roster. When did they pick him back up?
You have to really be a fanatic to keep track of everybody.
Right.
Well, they still have a lot of fantasy baseball. People know, just like fantasy football.
Oh, they do.
They know everybody.
They know everybody.
They get the books and follow it all out. And who's going to win the money for me this week?
It's not a cash deal for us unless they want to pay us for doing this, which we wouldn't turn that down.
Yeah, we get royalties, but we give them to charity.
Yeah, right.
So until next time, I'm afraid there might be some snow on the ground by then.
There might be, but the baseball season will have concluded. Another one in the books next time we see you.
So see you anon.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Be safe.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out.